Greetings, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Enterprise Edge podcast. My name is Mark Vigoroso, founder and CEO of the Enterprise Edge. I'm thrilled today to welcome our guest, Brian Landsman. Brian is a senior executive at Salesforce, running global partnerships and Agentforce and AppExchange. He's got quite a bit to share with us today, and I'm really looking forward to the discussion. But first, let's give a proper welcome to Mr. Brian. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Mark, it's great to be here.
Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining. Well, so I don't think Salesforce needs an introduction. I think everyone knows where the company has been over recent years and the trajectory that it's on, leading in spaces like agentic AI, which is obviously pretty much a ubiquitous headline these days. But I thought we'd start with just a couple icebreakers just to get to know you a little bit, Brian, get warmed up. We'll have a few business questions, and then we'll end with what we call the speed round. So we'll have a little fun along the way.
All right.
So Brian, your let's go back a little bit. So you started, as best as I can tell, you can keep me honest on this. I think you started sort of in the investment banking space at a company called Gleacher Partners, and spent some time in restructuring and recapitalization. And I think you joined Salesforce around 2012 through an acquisition. I'm just curious, what was that transition like, if you can think back that far, from dealing with kind of distressed companies to building one of the world's most successful partner ecosystems?
Sure. Yeah. It was a tough transition. Not tough in that it was stressful during it, but it was a tough transition to make. I started my career as a restructuring banker, mostly representing credit side advisory. So really helping support investors who were typically debt owners of businesses who were going through a either in court or out of court restructuring, helping them recapitalize the company, helping them then build a plan to kind of rebuild the company.
Mm,
And I started doing that as a 21-year-old. I think my third week of work was the week that Lehman Brothers filed for bankruptcy. So it
yeah.
was a really wild time to be working in restructuring. I think I spent an enormous amount of time at Wilmington, Delaware, at the bankruptcy court, pitching
Yeah.
business to various companies who were going under or going through a full restructuring. And I think at a certain point, we would show up and we would be pitching to no competition because so many shops were just totally, um, they were basically out of resources to do restructuring. There just weren't even enough restructuring banking groups, let alone enough restructuring bankers to handle the demand. So it was really a wild time. I think I was working, it's a very different work environment then. There was no work from home. So I spent an
Yeah.
inordinate amount of time, sleeping at the office.
Yeah.
Um, but it was a great experience. Most of the companies I worked on were not technology companies.
Okay.
They were home builders, auto parts companies, things of that nature, which, in the long run was actually a great experience for working at Salesforce, where, not all of our customers obviously are technology companies. Many of them are home builders, auto part companies, things of that nature. But, in getting out of working in banking, which I did 3 years, and most of my colleagues went to go work in private equity or at other banks or whatever it was after their kind of analyst stint. I really wanted to work in tech, and it
Mm,
took me about a year to make that transition. I think I did something like 7,500 meetings just trying to meet people. And in New York, it wasn't exactly the center of the technology world either. So it was a challenge. Got lucky, ended up working at a company called Buddy Media, which was an early Facebook partner. Back before the timeline existed, we were helping companies manage their Facebook content and fans effectively and distribute that content around the world to the right users with the right permissions, very Salesforce oriented. And that kind of became the origins of the Salesforce Marketing Cloud before we, bought ExactTarget and kind of built that program up. And my job was to build out our partner strategy off of Facebook. So my first relationships were with some of those early social networks. At the time, it was very early in monetization of those social networks. So I spent a lot of time with Twitter and with Yelp and all
yeah.
these places that were kind of emerging on the internet at that time, while I was at Bunny Media and then subsequently at Salesforce. So yeah, it was an interesting time. It was an interesting
Yeah.
transition, but got lucky in a certain sense to end up at a company like Salesforce at a really good time.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's almost an eternity ago, right? 2012. It seems like so long ago now.
Yeah,
But and you're still based in New York, is that right?
I am based in New York, born and bred.
Yeah. Nice, very nice. Well, I'm from Boston, so I won't hold that against you. So,
Depends if
uh,
you're a Mets fan or a Yankee fan. I'm a Mets fan, so don't worry, all good.
we'll have that discussion off camera. Um, so second and last icebreaker. So I heard you on another, I think it was another podcast talking about agents, AI agents, and the importance of interconnectivity between and among agents as they proliferate. And, literally thinking about agents as they've often been thought of now as sort of digital labor, digital workforce,
Yeah,
and that and they have to talk to each other, right? They have to, quote unquote, they have to interact and provide inputs and outputs and reason and adapt and decide and things like that. And I'm curious if this is sort of a creative question. If your agents that you think about putting a team together of agents, what personalities would you want on that agent team?
well, I think the personality I'd want the most is competency.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a personality trait, but I'd
No,
want
that
the answers to be correct.
yes.
Particularly in the case of business agents. I don't know, maybe I have an agent for making me a great playlist on Spotify, and I want that agent to have great taste in music, but
Yeah.
or at least my taste in music. But for the purpose of business, I want it to be competent. I want it to be able to understand what I'm really trying to get to,
Hmm.
maybe before I even know it. It was funny, we were talking through some of our own agent strategy for how we were going to use agents with our partner ecosystem.
Hmm.
It was a very interesting discussion just watching the team try to understand how all these things are going to work together, because there's the concept of how they work together, and then
Hmm.
there's the experience of how they work together.
Hmm.
And you know, so many of our customers and our users going forward are going to be people who, like Salesforce when it started, we wanted it to be as easy as Amazon.com. Now they use ChatGPT every day, or they use Claude, or they use Gemini, or they use one of these, consumer oriented interfaces. And they're used to kind of, I would just say, asking it what they want to ask it. They're maybe not used to going to a very specific agent for a specific purpose. And so there's kind of these general purpose agents, and then there are these very capable, very specific agents. And you want the sort of general purpose agents to be able to identify when they need to go to a specific purpose agent. They almost want to be a supervisor of sorts.
Right.
And so if you don't have the ability to kind of do that first, the user is just going to get frustrated anyway, because now they're going looking for all of these agents in the places that they're supposed to be. It's not what the user experience is going to become. Everyone is going to be used to using this as something that they can talk to. And then that, sort of AI that they talk to has the capability to go do things autonomously. And that's really the agents that we're talking about, those agents that are really able to go complete tasks on behalf
Yeah.
of you as a person or you as a user, or in theory, on behalf of another agent who has sent you on that
Right.
task, which is where the interconnectivity really starts to get really
Right.
crazy.
You mentioned the partner ecosystem is obviously a big part of your remit there at Salesforce, and my observation is that it's sort of like a lot of things. There's a radical shift happening where historically maybe partners of Salesforce have developed applications and integrations, but now they're building AI agents, right? And maybe it's not or, but I'm curious how that sort of shift is affecting the relationships or the type of partnerships that Salesforce is building and seeking to build in that all important partner ecosystem that you've got.
Yeah, I mean, I think it opens the aperture enormously for us. I mean,
Hmm.
we have an amazing ecosystem of partners, and obviously we're spending a lot of time with those partners because, in spite of all the AI in the mix, these are still human relationships that we have with these
Hmm.
companies. They're companies who've built entire businesses in and around Salesforce, or
Hmm.
whose users require Salesforce, whose product requires an integration, a deep integration with Salesforce. And those relationships are still managed by my team and partner managers and vice versa on the other side. And so we're really spending a lot of time with those folks talking about how we bring our products together around agents. I mean, our products have been together around applications for some time, which is really the benefit of what we have now. We can actually take those relationships and agentify the experiences and make the way that you use those applications or integrations that much better. And also the speed to the ability to actually deploy those agentic experiences much faster because the workflows between the applications, they already exist. The customers have already installed them. They don't need to go rebuild the entire infrastructure behind the agent. They just need the agent to have the right context, the right data, and the ability to create the right task, and then help with what the prompt should be in order to do that. And so, the types of partners we have, the types of experiences we're going to see are very much the ones that we've seen enormous customer success on for years. But now we're getting to this new chapter where we have partners who maybe they haven't been so deeply integrated with Salesforce, but the use cases haven't been as deep as they could be. And now with agents, we get the second chapter of connectivity opportunity where the use cases become far more interesting and far more broad. I think of a company like Box, who's been a longtime partner of Salesforce. Um, but the stuff that we're working on with them is just far more interesting. I mean, the insights you can pull out from knowledge of every document and its context and its relevancy to the thing you need versus
Mm,
having to go as a user and find all of those documents in your file storage and box. It's a totally
right.
different experience between the companies. So now when I'm building sales content, the speed at which I can build that and the quality that I can build that is going to be infinitely better than what it might have been before, in spite of an existing partnership. So I
Yeah.
think we're seeing this explosion in opportunity both with existing partners and sort of these partners who we had lightweight integrations with, but maybe we weren't wowing people. And it's not to say that the existing integration was not great, but
Yeah.
so yeah, it's a really exciting time in the ecosystem.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. And there's another common refrain right now, I think, in the market, and that is, what is the ideal human agent collaboration look like, right? As the autonomy of agentic applications sort of solidifies, what does sort of that mix of human in the loop use cases, fully autonomous use cases, how does that mix change over time? Right? It's sort of the human factor, and a lot of people have some, I would say, rational as well as irrational fear about
Yeah.
what's going to happen to a lot of the human capital that a lot of companies currently have. And you have a unique vantage point from your seat at Salesforce, Brian, in my estimation, because you have such a perspective across the partner ecosystem. You also see how Salesforce customers are consuming and deploying and governing AI enabled processes, both generative and agentic. So I'm curious, how do you see that human agent collaboration relationship happening now and over time?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is this obvious fear that, AI will sort of replace lots of work. And I don't think that fear is unfounded. I think there is an element of it that is true. I think that
Mhm.
element of AI replacing work has been true, or sorry, technology replacing work has been true of every technology shift. I mean, it's not without major change into the jobs that people do and the types of jobs that exist or grow in productivity. I happen to be a believer that AI is going to enable an enormous amount of productivity. Now, there are obvious places where I get worried, and the places where I get worried are there's lots of sort of initial in your career, early on in your career work that AI is now going to take away. That's sort of fundamental to the building blocks of becoming a learned professional. So yeah, now as a longtime employee, I could go in. Let's just actually rewind that. Now, as a third year investment banker, before I was going to work in Salesforce, I could go into a new Excel tool and prompt exactly what I need to do to build a model. But in order to know what to prompt, I would have had to have built a model at some point in my life.
Yeah.
And so, the worry is you may not have as much time to learn those things because you're just going to kind of skip to the prompting phase. And do you really actually learn that well enough at an early era? But then I also think about what life was like as a banker. And I just talked to you about it. We were showing up. We didn't have enough people to pitch all the business that there was during the restructuring. But
Yeah.
if I could have built, instead of taking 4 days to build a pitch, if I could have built that in one day, well, I could have pitched 50 more businesses, and I could have done 50 more restructurings, and the restructurings could have been done in half the time, and people could have gone on with their life. They probably would have been less expensive to the companies that were going to go in the restructuring. So I look at that and I say, are we really going to have as much disruption as people think, or are we just going to become enormously more productive? I mean, so far, I can tell you from talking to people in the AI space, people are working more. They're not
Yeah.
working less
Yeah.
because the transition is so enormous that they need to really do a lot of workforce planning before they can even adopt a smidge of this technology. I mean, we're hiring an enormous amount of salespeople. Mark
Yeah.
was talking about this week.
Yeah.
The reason we're hiring more salespeople is because our inbound sales agents that we're using and building are able to qualify so many more leads. So the
Yeah.
leads that are coming in are of such higher quality. We don't have enough salespeople to follow them up. So we're actually hiring
Yeah.
more people in sales and actually
Yeah.
increasing our sales capacity. Now, at the same time, are there other things we're probably going to hire less of? Probably.
Mm.
That
Yeah.
probably will happen at some point, if it's not already happening. And I think you're probably seeing this in every business, that every business is undergoing this massive change on workforce rebalancing because there's this huge opportunity to use the AI to do and accomplish so much more. But then, there are tasks that maybe are simple, but you learn by doing them. And so, do I have the right plan to train my employees up to do something else or do something maybe that would have taken them 3 years to learn because they no longer have to actually do it as a function of the company? And so that's what
Yeah.
I'm seeing primarily is more uh, how we adapt the technology, not what the technology can do. Although there are limits to that still at this point in time, particularly around the quality of the data being used.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned I like the word rebalancing because it's kind of what we're seeing as well. Is you think about the aspirations you have when you hire somebody, specifically maybe a mid to higher level person. You have all these aspirations for this person to you know add strategic, substantive value to the company, and we all have experienced where your day is consumed by a lot of things that are not necessarily strategic or value add, right? Just because you're fighting fires and you're reacting in a lot of cases. And we're seeing areas where some of that stuff that occupy a lot of your day could be mitigated or reduced or addressed, at least in part, by semi-automated AI assisted processes, and actually allowing some of these talented folks to add value the way they were intended to, right? In more strategic areas, taking better advantage of their skill sets, education, and talents, and actually driving your employee experience and retention and all of that up, right? So there's all these sort of domino effects that I think, in the end, I think is going to be a net positive. But it's we're in the middle of it, right? We're still in the top of the first inning, in my opinion, is as
Very
far
much
as
so.
is fair as far as where we are, and it kind of leads to my next question, which you mentioned a little bit already, is this progression that you're seeing companies go through. They're not nobody's going to boil the ocean. Nobody's going to instantaneously become an AI agent first enterprise. And I'm curious, where are you seeing a lot of companies, whether they're direct customers of Salesforce or partners, where are they starting? Are there logical places to start with agentic AI, customer facing or internal facing? Is there any themes or patterns that you're seeing along those lines?
I think in many cases, we're seeing customers adopt AI in places where they've already been experimenting with automation for a long time.
Mm,
Particularly places when it comes to customer facing, they're experimenting it in support. I mean, we've all been experiencing support, whether it be a true contact center or more of a B2B support center. We've been dealing with automation bots and to a degree, probabilistic AI more than true, generative AI
yep.
for a long time. I mean, it's not a new thing to get on a phone, call an airline, and talk to a voice that qualifies your problem and reduces the time to resolution. You don't immediately get to a person. That's existed for as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
And so the places where we're seeing the application of AI in, customer facing things is primarily around support, mostly because the business has been operating as if they had that technology and were expecting it to get better for a really long time. And it's going to get better. It's going to get significantly better. We're already seeing it in our own use. If you go to help.salesforce.com, you can see the quality of how much you can learn from that. And it's not, you know, all the way 100% there yet, but even in just seeing how many people end up in a support case, we're just seeing that number go way, way, way down because many of the questions can be answered, in a way that is easy to understand instead of someone just sending you kind of a link that you then have to go read. People are actually explaining the answer that you need. And by people, I mean the AI, not me. Um, so I think we're seeing that in the customer facing side. And then on the B2B side, it's kind of the same thing. A lot of internal agents helping with assistive support cases for now. So things like I'm a salesperson, I need knowledge summary. I'm a salesperson, I want to get a better understanding of what this account is about or what this lead is about, what they're likely to do, what may have been done in the past, summarize my account. Lots of things you'd sort of expect from playing around with the customer or consumer facing AI tools. Document summary, I can give a whole bunch of documents into the AI and get business insights. So again, things that people have been using software for a long time and are sort of used to. I think that's where we're seeing the fast adoption is, can I make that process of getting that significantly shorter? But the next wave of automation, it's coming.
Yeah.
People are planning for it. People are experimenting for it. Companies are looking at where they've had kind of an automation gap or where they've had a bottleneck, and their first instinct now is, "Oh my God, maybe I might be able to actually kind of get this thing fixed using AI. This is the answer I've been waiting for." But again, lots of internal use cases so far.
Mm.
Um, but really exciting ones. I mean, workflows that have existed but have just required lots of individual human work are now coming to the person rather than the person having to come to it.
Yeah, it's exciting times. No doubt. No doubt. So last question for you, Brian, and then we'll do a speed round and then we'll let you get back to the matters of the day. But so this one's a little sort of mechanical, right? And you think about some of the integration, process and systems integration that has to happen as agentic AI agents kind of go mainstream and they start to scale. There's this sort of integration surface area that has to exist between legacy process as well as legacy system, whether that's ERP or any other existing enterprise app. And so this sort of arena of sort of system and process integration is one that I'm interested in because a lot of the use cases, a lot of the proofs of concept that I've seen around agentic AI mostly are fairly insular. They're fairly self-contained. There's a few that I've seen that have sort of scaled and mainstream, if you will. But I'm curious what you're seeing, what you hope to see, what you expect to see in this area of system integration between sort of enterprise apps and the increasingly mainstream agentic AI in the coming months and years.
Yeah. I think, you know, what you want to really hope to see, maybe that's the better answer is
Yeah.
what I hope to see, because I think there's a lot of devil in the details. But what I hope to see is years of really well-crafted applications and systems of record that have built great workflows that have the right permissions and security around data, being able to talk to each other with an understanding of what that data means to each other without enormous amounts of prescription to the AI. So the AI being able to really understand, if I have this, understanding of data in this system and this understanding of data, they're called different things, they mean different things. The ability for those to really understand each other
Mm.
without lots of setup. So this is kind of the promise of MCP, is that you kind of get this universal translator,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't say it's all the way there. I mean, you really do have to work through it, but that's the hope, right? That when I say, I'm talking about a case in Salesforce and it needs to reference a ticket in Jira, that it's able to understand what urgency means in both of those systems, for example. And what we call a high priority ticket might be something different than Atlassian calls it. And so the hope and promise of these systems talking to each other is that the AI can use the skills of the AI to understand what that output is rather than me having to prescribe it for
Mm,
it. And so when we think about integration patterns, why we're so excited about MCP, we see a lot of promise there. We see promise with A to A. I imagine there's going to be other protocols that are going to show up.
mhm.
But that's really what we're most excited about. Because if you find the translation layer, you can sort of take advantage of everyone's owned and operated AI. So we don't need to go tell every single person this is exactly how you build it. They can build what makes sense for their application, their service, their data, their business, and that can easily talk. So it's like if you're at the UN and everyone spoke the same language without having to kind of go into the translator in the earpiece. Um, maybe international diplomacy would be a little bit easier.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, Brian, this is great stuff. I wish we had more time. I'll have to have you back at some point, but I think what we'll do now, just in the interest of time, is I'm gonna round us out here with a few speed round questions. Think about these as just 30 seconds or less on each one of these. Don't overthink them, and then we'll wrap it up for this afternoon. All right, so we'll get in the right frame of mind here. Um, okay, you've got some Wharton history, and you also have 13 years at Salesforce. Which prepared you better for this AI revolution that we're in right now?
It was 13 years at Salesforce, no question about it.
Yeah,
I mean, I had a great experience going to Wharton undergrad, but uh,
yeah,
there's no accounting for practical experience in
practical.
the workplace.
Yeah, no question, no question. If you could turn any mundane personal task into an AI agent, what would be the first thing you'd automate in your own life?
Oh, that's a good one. Um, oof. Uh, Maybe doing the laundry.
Doing the laundry. There you go.
I don't want to do the laundry anymore. If
Yeah.
someone could do the laundry for me that was automated, I'd be very happy. And that's, I was going to say cleaning, but I don't mind cleaning. I find it to be therapeutic sometimes, but doing the
You know, I
laundry,
I,
yeah,
I should
folding
have
the
to.
laundry maybe even more than anything.
I should have to answer these as well. Maybe next time I'll answer. I'll give my answers, but um,
Yeah, actually, I mean, sometimes maybe it's like compliance training.
yeah,
That might be one, but I feel
that's
like
right.
that's probably something I should take.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Agent Force or AppExchange? Which one keeps you up at night thinking about all the possibilities?
Well, there's actually a middle ground to that, which is the agent exchange, which is the
Ah,
new
yeah,
marketplace for Agent Force. But
yeah,
certainly Agent Force. I mean, with no disrespect to my beloved App Exchange,
yeah.
the future opportunities around Agent Exchange and Agent Force, that is undoubtedly what I'm thinking about every night before I go to sleep at the moment.
Yeah. Hopefully, it's not keeping you up at night.
Sometimes depends on the day.
Yeah. Okay, you in your role, you've built partnerships with Google, with AWS, with Box, with lots of other major juggernauts in the tech space. And if you had to be stuck in an elevator for 3 hours with one CEO from your partner ecosystem, who would it be and why?
Current CEO at the moment.
Yeah, any actually it could be current or past CEO from your partner relationships.
I'd probably choose Jeff Bezos, even though he's not the
Jeff
CEO of
Bezos.
Amazon anymore. I mean, I would probably put Andy on that list as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
Mostly because I'm fascinated by their decision making process, and
yes,
I love it. I use it very often in my own team, even though it's not kind of the cultural backbone of decision making at Salesforce. I find their process for decision making. To just be I just admire it a lot. I think it's very
yep,
deliberate.
yep,
And I think it forces people to write, which it's got
yes.
to be an interesting experiment working over there now with generative AI to see who
So
can actually write and be
who's
persuasive
writing
versus
exactly?
who's generating the content. But
Yeah,
I like to write. I've always been a writer over a visual
yeah,
medium person. And so for me, that's what I would talk to them
yeah,
about is sort of how they use that at their company. I'm just fascinated about it by a
yeah.
management perspective.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right. Last one. Will there be more AI agents than mobile apps by 2027?
Yes.
Yeah. That's kind of an easy one. That might already be true, right? uh,
I mean, the the great part about an AI agent is that, in a certain sense, the bar is low, right? An AI
mm,
agent, in theory, I mean, I don't think anyone's properly defined the minimum viable thing an agent has to do to be considered an agent. I
yeah.
mean, if you really want to talk about agent interoperability, there is the idea that there's the supervisory agent, the all-knowing agent who tells you everything you want. And they
Hmm.
have the power to talk to hundreds, thousands of agents whose entire job is to do one task.
Yeah.
And so if you count each one of those as agents, then forget
Right.
it. It's not even close.
Not even close. Well, Brian, with that, I want to thank. This has been fascinating. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're a busy guy, fresh off of some vacation, so I'll let you back to it. Brian, thank you so much. Thank you for what you're doing and helping to lead our collective thinking in this marketplace. And I look forward to staying in touch and partnering with Salesforce going forward. With that, thank you all for listening. This is the Enterprise Edge signing off, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks, everybody. Bye bye.
Thank you.